Hello, welcome to the Daily Fantasy Whiff. He is Josh Shepardson at BChad50. I am Big Italy 42, and we're talking about the 7-game slate. It seems like it always is a 7-game slate on Saturdays right now. We're talking about what teams you want to stack, what teams you want to avoid. There's not really any pitchers that you need to be avoiding on this slate. Nobody that is a lock to have a great performance, anything like that. So a lot of these games in play. We'll give you the stacks. We won't just tell you which teams to stack. We'll tell you who we're looking at, individuals, some mini stacks, who to stack, DraftKings, FanDuel, everything. So we'll go game by game as we do, starting off with St. Louis at Pittsburgh. And if there's one game that you don't feel like it's necessary to cover in your stacks, this may be the one. You've got A.J. Burnett facing off against John Lackey, two pitchers who have been very good this season. 6.5 run total, minus 120 favorite for A.J. Burnett, not John Lackey. Barely a favorite here. And this one's going to be interesting because these should be both pretty popular pitchers. You mentioned you think Burnett will be the most popular, and I find it hard to disagree with that. I don't think anyone will be huge owned, but of the guys who will be owned, I think Burnett probably will be the most popular. So for that reason alone, you may want to throw in yourself a Cardinals stack just to be contrarian, because if Burnett doesn't have it, then the Cardinals more so on DK because they're a better team stack than they are individual stack. And they don't hit a lot of home runs. Burnett doesn't allow a lot of home runs, but a couple big innings could lead to a nice contrarian stack tonight, though.
Yeah, these are my two favorite pitchers on the night. They're in a pitcher-friendly ballpark, low total for the game. Burnett is my favorite, and I do think he's going to be the most popular pitcher tonight. But as you said, we're not talking about Chris Sale popular or Clayton Kershaw popular. We're talking about the best of a mediocre lot of pitchers tonight. So ownership's not going to be crazy, but anytime you could pick on the most popular pitcher with a stack, you probably got a decent edge because you're not going to see a lot of Cardinals bats owned. You're not going to see a lot of those stacks out there. So if it does go off, you're going to be in a very profitable position. But don't go crazy with that. If you're only entering one or two GPPs tonight, the Cardinal stack is certainly not by any means our top stack of the night. It is, as Justin said, a contrarian stack. And I think it's a strong contrarian stack because the top pitcher on the slate isn't an elite starter, but it's not one that you have to go bending over backwards to get. And on the opposite side of things, the Pirates' offense is actually worse than the Cardinals against righties this year, at least as measured by WRC+. So they don't make for a very interesting stack. Lackey, going to have some ownership, but we're not talking about a crazy high-owned pitcher, so you're not gaining a lot of ground there either. It's not anything special in terms of being contrarian. There are some bats in that lineup that you can always turn to. Guys like Andrew McCutchen's always in play just because he's an elite player. Jung-Ho Kang, if he's going to be hitting cleanup again, going to offer some cheap salary relief at shortstop at a position where there's never really a lot of great options anyway. But in terms of stacks, nothing that to really get revved up about with the Pirates tonight. So not saying that Lackey is a great start, but I'm also not going out of my way to attack him with stacks tonight from the Pirates.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that you can easily avoid this game as far as hitters go and be fine, but definitely the contrarian route is the way to go with this one if you're playing a bunch of lineups. Next up, New York Yankees at the Boston Red Sox. Eduardo Rodriguez taking on Ivan Nova. And as usual, we expect some runs in these games, as they usually are, 8.5 runs. Eduardo Rodriguez, a minus 143 favorite. And we talked on the earlier podcast about Ivan Nova and the fact that he's become really a contact pitcher. 2 of his 3 starts, he has only struck out 1 batter. That's not good against a team that doesn't strike out much anyway in Boston. So this is a team that definitely is very stackable. Really, both sides of this stackable. I think Boston will be a fairly popular stack because they have fair price tags for the most part, and they're a team that people will stack quite often. But on the other side of things, you've got the Yankees, and that's going to be an interesting stack, I think, because Eduardo Rodriguez been one of those guys who been up and down, obviously, since he came up. Had a couple really good starts and had a couple really bad starts. Been decent in his last 2. Also, you consider, Gardner and Ellsbury atop that lineup, a couple lefties, lefty-lefty matchups. Certainly, these aren't guys that sit against lefties. They're not platoon guys. But because of that, that's going to be a really interesting, I think, lower-owned stack and 8.5 run total on the Yankees side.
Yeah, in terms of ownership, you don't expect the Yankees to be high-owned in a lefty-lefty matchup because so many of their batters are left-handed. But the nice thing about Gardner and is that they're speedsters. You're not relying on them to reach the seats. I mean, Gardner's definitely added power to his game since the start of last season, but if they get on base, they can steal bases, and it's an interesting approach to point scoring because everybody loves chasing power. Everybody loves chasing the platoon advantage. When you get these guys that get on and steal bases, it's an unconventional, easy to overlook way of point scoring. And the Yankees are an offense that can really string together big innings at times. So definitely explosive potential. The total on the game at 8.5 does indicate that offensive fireworks are to be expected. As you said, Boston probably going to be a pretty popular stack, but it is a stack that I like quite a bit because I think there are some interesting things you can do with it. You can consider a wraparound stack depending on how the bottom of that order looks. You can consider maybe grabbing some mini stacks and not necessarily starting at the top of the order, maybe starting in the middle of the order. And if you're on DraftKings, you've got some options because Hanley Ramirez is still inexplicably shortstop eligible. So you've got some oddities here, and I do like the Red Sox stack. Maybe leave a big player out of it. Maybe drop a big Poppy because these stacks are going to feature him, and drop a Albert Pujols into your Red Sox stack and give yourself a little bit of diversity compared to what the other lineups are going to look like. And the Red Sox do make for one of my favorite stacks on the night.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like you said, lots of speed, lots of power. This is a team that can punish you from top to bottom, so I'll be definitely getting myself some shares of them. And this next game is going to be interesting on both ends because you've got Washington at Baltimore, 7:15 start like the other one. Zimmerman against Miguel Gonzalez. Jordan Zimmerman coming off his paternity leave, just had a baby. Well, I'm assuming it was his wife. I didn't see official word on that. One of them had a baby in the past couple days. Hopefully not him if he's pitching tonight, but this one's going to be a fun one because obviously it's in Camden where you like to look for offense. Only a 7.5 run total though. Miguel Gonzalez is a slight favorite. And this one, it's hard to peg because Miguel Gonzalez hasn't been a terrible pitcher, but he also has struggles with the long ball and has throughout his entire career. 1.53 home runs per 9 so far this season. And on the opposite side there, Jordan Zimmerman's just been a solid pitcher. In fact, he hasn't allowed an earned run, or he's allowed one earned run over his last 3 starts. So a guy who isn't a dominant pitcher but's been very good, but also facing a tough offense in a hitter's park. And then on the other side, you want to stack a bunch of Bryce Harpers, but there's only one Bryce Harper, and there's really nothing else in that lineup that you feel good about. So maybe get some mini stacks. I like maybe Harper and Desmond as a power upside, a little mini stack there. But outside of that, I really am not a fan of the Washington offense against anyone.
Yeah, I mean, hooking guys around Harper is definitely viable. I'm not going to be going out of my way to attack Zimmerman, though. This is another area where contrarian stack could come and play because Zimmerman should be fairly popular tonight. He has been very good. His strikeout rate's down this year, which does hurt his cause. Could get a bump in strikeout rate tonight because the Orioles do swing and miss a bit. But if Zimmerman is continuing to pitch contact, this is a lineup that can punish contact pitchers. And you've got guys like Machado and Chris Davis and Jimmy Paredes who can really drive the ball. So there is some merit to stacking. Again, I'm not going out of my way to do it because Zimmerman is a very good pitcher. But because he's probably going to be popular tonight, it does make for a contrarian stack, much like we discussed with the Cardinals against A.J. Burnett tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think it's this is another interesting one. You could leave it completely out and you'll probably be all right, but definitely low ownership. Another one of those. Now we're back to the darling stack of last night. San Diego Padres at the Texas Rangers. James Shields against Colby Lewis. And in years past, you see this matchup and you say, I'm playing James Shields and I'm targeting Colby Lewis. But tonight may actually be the opposite of that. And once again, big total here, 9-run total. Colby Lewis. If this tells you anything about what Vegas thinks, minus 117 favorite. Looks like it started as an 8.5-run total, up to 9 now. And this one's going to be a fun one because you and I both talked earlier about how Colby Lewis has improved significantly from last year. He obviously still is prone to blow-ups, but this is San Diego offense that just continues to show that they aren't capable of putting big runs on the board. So for that reason, Colby Lewis, an interesting tournament option. I don't think that the Padres will be a low-owned stack tonight, so maybe avoiding that stack might help give you an edge in some tournaments, and that's Texas stack, especially on the lefties. I mean, you got a 385 WOBA allowed by James Shields to lefties, 10 home runs already on the season. I love all of those lefties, and I know you do as well. It's almost like you just don't have enough lineup spots to target him with these lefties tonight, because the Texas is just such a great stack once again.
Yeah, I love the Texas Rangers stack tonight. I also love grabbing one-offs or mini stacks and hooks in this game as well. Maybe grabbing yourself Chu and Fielder, get yourself a couple of lefties against Shields. But I'm with you. Colby Lewis looks like a sneaky, decent GPP play because the Padres are so right-handed dominant, and Lewis is good against right-handed batters. You look at the big pieces in that Padres offense, and they are right-handed. They don't have left-handed bats that strike any fear into you in that lineup. Yonder Alonso is essentially their best left-handed bat. And, I mean, if you're going out of your way to avoid Yonder Alonso, I don't know who you're going to attack. There are not many lineups who have a less imposing top left-handed bat in their order. So I do like Lewis and GPPs. I am not stacking against him because the Padres just don't have the left-handed bats to really exploit Lewis's weakness. And with the Rangers, yeah, I mean, get some full-blown stacks, get some mini stacks, get those left-handed bats in there against him. The big total tells you what you need to know. The big total and James Shields being an underdog really tells you what you need to know here. Expect some fireworks from the Rangers tonight.
Absolutely. Once again, like we said, great stack there for you. A few more games here. Philadelphia at the San Francisco Giants. Vogelsong versus David Buchanan. Not quite the mismatch we saw last night, but Vegas still thinks it is a mismatch, mostly due to the offense, of course. A minus 200 favorite right now for Ryan Vogelsong against Buchanan. Obviously, Vegas expecting some runs to be scored here. They're expecting him on the San Francisco side, 7.5 run total. And David Buchanan, he's not a terrible pitcher, but he's a fringe major league starter, a guy that you can certainly pick on. And I know you and I will both be picking on him, but you in particular really like the Giants today. So why don't you give me your rundown? If you're going a FanDuel stack, for instance, who's the 4 guys you have to include?
I'm probably going to go ahead. I'm going to drop Pagan off the top. Typically, he hits leadoff. I'm looking at the 2 through 5 stack, and I'm going to run Panic, Duffy, Posey, and Pence. It's going to give you the best power hitters in that Giants lineup. And to be honest, you're not missing a lot with Pagan. You're not missing much speed. You're not missing much power. Yes, he could get on base and score some runs, but I'd rather have the guys in there that can really do the damage. I also wouldn't be opposed to dropping down a little bit lower. We know guys like Crawford and Belt are going to be outside those top 5 bats in the lineup. Maybe go from Posey through that. Posey, Pence, Crawford, and Belt, and you've got yourself some left-handed batters and some power in your stack. And I mean, granted, we're not talking about top shelf Bryce Harper type power. There's only one Bryce Harper, but point being, if you're going to get some power in that lineup, it's going to be those guys. And Buchanan, as you said, fringe big leaguer at best. He's been bad this year. His FIP and XFIP are both north of 5. You do want to, even if you're not stacking the Giants, you're going to want to get some Giants bats in there against him just because he's not good. He is the worst pitcher on the slate tonight.
Yeah, and the Giants, I mean, as we saw last night, they've had some explosive performances, especially at home. So definitely a route that I'll be taking tonight once again. And by once again, I mean it's a good route to take. I didn't stack the Giants last night, so I'm not going to lie to you and say that I did. But wish that I had. I get it if you did. Congratulations if you did. That was a great stack last night. Milwaukee at the Dodgers now. Taylor Jungmann against Brandon Beachy. Brandon Beachy, you and I were talking about it. He's a guy that we loved a couple of years ago with Atlanta. Had great stuff. You mentioned you had looked into his minor league numbers. So what did you see through his rehab starts that give us an indication of what to expect tonight?
While they weren't pretty, he had nearly as many walks as he did strikeouts at the AAA level, and he wasn't striking anyone out. You can almost live with a slightly wild Brandon Beachy if he's missing bats, but he was not only not locating pitches, but he wasn't striking anyone out. He had an 11.8% walk rate at the AAA level and just a 14.5% strikeout rate. 4.06 FIP is pretty good at the Pacific Coast League level. I mean, in the Pacific Coast League, it's a tough league, but it's if you're going to pitch to that kind of contact against a big league lineup and you're going to issue those kind of free passes, it's not going to fly. It barely flew at the AAA level, not going to fly at the big league level. So I do think that the Brewers make for a sneaky stack tonight because there is a low total in this game. You're not going to see people going out of their way to grab the Brewers against right-handed pitching either. But when you got guys like Gomez and Braun and Lucroy and the red-hot Gerardo Parra, put a charge into the baseball. You got some speed mixed in there. You got a little bit of everything. You've got what you're looking for in a stack. A chance for stolen bases, a chance for home runs. Adam Lind is good against right-handed pitching. So it is a stack that I like quite a bit tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that's a fine stack. And then the Dodgers on the opposite side, going to be interesting here because Taylor Jungmann, a guy who I feel like he's been living off of batted balls. He's got a 2.43 ERA, but he's just hasn't been that good of a pitcher. But at the same time, this is a fairly low total of 7 runs, so I don't think it's necessary to stack the Dodgers. A lot of them more expensive than you'd like them to be. So what's your take there on Dodgers? You going mini stack?
Yeah, I'll probably hook a few players, get some of those left-handed bats against Youngman. 2.43 ERA, definitely besting his 3.53 FIP and 3.99 xFIP. So there is some regression due for Youngman, but I don't necessarily think you need to go full-blown stack with the Dodgers. They do have some righties mixed in there that I'm not terribly enamored with, but go ahead and get yourself some Adrian Gonzalez, some Yasmani Grandal, some Jock Peterson. If Andre Ethier's back in the lineup, maybe you grab him. And then if you are going to grab a righty, Justin Turner's the guy that I'm looking at. He's just been hitting the ball really well this half. But beyond that, like I don't think you necessarily need to grab yourself a Howie Kendrick just because he's in the heart of the order. We know he's much better against lefties than righties. He is fine against righties, but just not a guy that I'm terribly enamored with. So I'm thinking hooks and mini stacks here with the Dodgers.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. And as we move here to the final game, the Angels at the Seattle Mariners, and as it usually is, there's some excitement in this final game. And C.J. Wilson against Hisashi Iwakuma, another one of those matchups where you turn back a calendar maybe a year or two, and this looks like a great pitcher's duel, but not necessarily the case today. C.J. Wilson, a favorite on the road, 7.5 run total, and we're talking about a Hisashi Iwakuma who has been, I would say awful, but I'm not here to compliment the man. He has been horrible, terrible, whatever adjective you'd like to use. 3.80 home runs per 9 so far in just 21 1/3 innings pitched this year. This is a guy who's been getting hit, and he's been getting hit very hard. And I don't expect that to change with guys like Mike Trout and Albert Pujols who are absolutely locked in today. So I'm sure it'll be a popular stack going, I'm guessing, FanDuel-wise, you're probably going Trout, Calhoun, Pujols, and then either Ibar or Giavotella as your other guy. Obviously, C.J. Cron, a guy that you want to get some exposure to. He's absolutely locked in right now. But can't play C.J. Cron with Albert Pujols. So take your pick there. Maybe alternate both, and then you can upgrade one because you got, especially on FanDuel, you have a $1,600 difference between Cron and Pujols. So maybe, go one stack with Pujols, get your next one Cron, and upgrade one of your other spots. Maybe even upgrade your pitcher there too.
Yep. Iwakuma, when it goes bad for him, it's usually due to the long ball, and that's been the case so far this year, giving up a lot of home runs. Basically, if he's not keeping that splitter down, it's a meatball. It's a pitch that can really be driven, and Mike Trout and Albert Pujols are a couple of guys who can really drive the baseball. So I do like this stack. I do like I do like the idea of mini stacking. If you're on DK, I don't necessarily think you need 6 Angels, but I think if you grab Calhoun through Pujols, something like that, you're going to be getting really what you want out of that, which is the power. You want the guys that can punish Hisashi Iwakuma for not locating his splitter well. On the other side of things, C.J. Wilson looks like a pretty strong play to me. He's facing a Mariners offense that's not good against left-handed pitching. They strike out in over 20% of their plate appearances. They're in the bottom half of the league in WRC plus against lefties. They do have a few interesting lefty mashers in Nelson Cruz, Mark Trumbo, who has not been very good with the Mariners this year or just in general this year, but does have a track record of handling left-handed pitching, manhandling, I should say, left-handed pitching. And then Jesus Montero's back in the big leagues, and the guy can rake against left-handed pitching. If by chance they are somehow arranged in a manner where you can get the three of them together, then you can look at a mini stack. But otherwise, it's really one-offs in this lineup that I'm looking at. Not a real stackable core for the Mariners tonight.
No, definitely some guys you want exposure to, but like you said, not a team you want to fully invest in there, aside from just trying to be contrarian. So hopefully we helped you out here with some ideas for your GPPs. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out all the great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.